Hi, this is Nicholas Bell with Ion Cinema, here to review Crisis, the sophomore narrative feature directed by Nicholas Jarecki, which Quiver Distribution is releasing February 26, 2021. Jarecki, who's part of the Jarecki clan, including Eugene and Andrew, is probably best known himself for his 2012 narrative feature debut, Arbitrage, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and starred Richard Gere, Susan Sarandon, and a bevy of high-profile performers. His latest also has an exceptional cast and attempts to navigate through fictional means several facets of the ongoing opioid crisis. So we have three different storylines that have some level of convergence per se, but it starts out with a young man trying to transport fentanyl from the Canadian border who's apprehended by the RCMPs, and it turns out he's wrapped up in this investigation being led by underground DEA agent Jake Kelly, played by Armie Hammer, who's working with some Armenians and the Canadians and for the past year, and is trying to kind of knock out this whole syndicate on both sides of the border at once, which is becoming increasingly compromised. The Montreal head of that crime syndicate there is known as Mother, and has been kind of assassinating these young drug runners who he believes to be a snitch. One of the young men that is wrapped up in this is a 16-year-old that is the son of Claire, played by Evangeline Lilly, who is an ex-opioid addict herself. We meet her at an NA meeting talking about her relationship with drugs and her son. She's waiting for him one night at dinner and he doesn't show up. Finds out several hours later that he's dead in oxycodone overdose, which she cannot believe possibly happened, and sends her off into a rabbit hole to understand why, ultimately crossing the Canadian border to attempt to find the head of this syndicate. As all of that's going on, and Armie Hammer has a drug-addicted sister played by Lily Rose Depp. There is Gary Oldman, who is a university professor, Dr. Tyrone Brower, who is also, his lab at the university runs alternative studies on drugs that are set to be approved by the FDA. One such drug is called Clarilon, which is supposed to be the non-addictive version of oxycodone, which would be a major event should that the FDA approve it. It's in its final stages of human trials, but Gary Oldman's lab has, run by Laura Torchia, who you can see in Ben Wheatley's In the Earth and Ari Aster's Midsummer, has run a test on some lab mice outside of the parameters dictated by the drug creators, and found that it is highly addictive and is killing the mice at a certain point. And he attempts to whistleblow this, only to be more or less railroaded by Big Pharma, which includes Luke Evans, Martin Donovan, and Veronica Ferres. Also Michelle Rodriguez is in there as Armie Hammer's supervisor. Indira Varma is Gary Oldman's pregnant wife. Scott Mescudi is an FTA agent. Ben Walker and Greg Kinnear is in there as Gary Oldman's boss, colleague, and ultimate Judas figure. Ultimately, Jarecki's screenplay operates a lot on cliches, especially when it comes to Armie Hammer and Evangeline Lilly's segments. What's more interesting, the meat of the film really seems to be this struggle with Big Pharma, if you will, and certain corporate kickbacks. However, that's not as fully fleshed out as it should be either, but it is the storyline that kind of makes you want more. Even though, there have been films that have kind of dealt with this in more interesting ways, such as The Insider by Michael Mann. But it's like there are kernels of good ideas there, but we're run through them at such breakneck speed. There's really no characterization, so we're not really led to have any poignancy for these people. Other Canadian films that have dealt more recently with the opioid crisis that are on a much more intimate level and effective are something like Werewolf or Castle in the Ground. The production value, of course, is there. It was shot by Nicholas Bolduc, who is often utilized by Kim Wen, because he lends War Witch, but as long as Denis Villeneuve's Enemy, which I'm a big fan of, and Claudia Yosa's Aloft. This film, it looks well enough. Again, as I said, the production value is there. However, is ultimately a bit shrill, with the leads of all three segments just kind of throwing temper tantrums over and over again, which they're forced to kind of work through with some awkward dialogue exchanges. Overall, I would give Crisis, which will be one of several last opportunities to see Armie hammer in something for a while, most likely, 1.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric from MyOnCinema.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.